What up? This is your boy Cass with Taboo Topics, back with another one. Keith Lee. So Keith Lee visited the Destination restaurant. And, the face of the restaurant being Mr. Walter, Mr. Tendernism. So it came out a little while back that Mr. Walter was not actual part owner of this business. And that's what this video was all about. And I believe that they were trying to clear the air. To me, if I'm being honest, that video felt a bit forced. The owner anyway, it seemed like he was trying to play into the hands of those watching the video. He was trying to make it seem like him and Walter are just such good buddies and they're such good friends and they do such good business together while still claiming that Walter was, part owner. Like he's not a worker, but a part owner, in which we can later see that there is paperwork floating around out there that shows actual ownership.
We have all of this partner talk, but when the paperwork is done, it has Nick's name
nowhere on that paperwork. So it's just one of them situations that turned out sad, but at the same time, I think there's more of a story behind it. And I was wondering, this is my taboo take on it, right? I think Walter is a little naive. There's this thing with old schools where they feel that the word was enough, right? That a man's word was like putting it on paper. And I know that's how they used to do it many years ago, possibly in Walter's time. I think Walter's a little bit younger than he looks. Of course, no disrespect with that. But again, I think that was their way. But that's me being fair. But in reality, maybe saying naive is a little too strong of a term, but I think he's a little clueless of what was really going on, because as we could see the owner joking and, laughing with him, and it was almost like he was speaking for Walter. And Walter just agreed until it got to a place where he felt like he needed to speak, which was only in a sense of white versus black. And that's not even saying he was being racist, because Walter was coming across like it was a friendship that he appreciated, as the owner kept pressing that, he's part owner, which again, we can see clearly that that's not the case. The business itself was explained that it was Walter's idea. He started it, and it was taken and blown up into something else. Now, I will say this, because I thought about this as I was watching it, right? The owner said that when we started this thing, it was a little coffee shop. We might have had a little, few spare ribs on the menu here and there, but it was nothing major. He said, but Walter started out with zero investment. Now, if I'm being fair, that's business. I get that. I mean, it's your business. Matter of fact, it's his family business. So he wasn't just going to take ownership and hand part of it over to someone that he brought on board. He may not even have the authority to do that. You know what I'm saying? Because for all we know, the family still actually, the paperwork's out there. His mom is on that paperwork as well. So he may not have had the authority to even make that decision. But at the same time, if he's using Walter, which it kind of seemed he was, and Walter being a little clueless, he can tell Walter anything and Walter will go along with it. Because Walter did seem like he was going along with it. But it seemed like it was forced. It seemed like the owner was just playing into the audience, even going as far as bringing in the other workers and people at the establishment to help push the narrative, which a lot of it made sense. When Keith showed up, one of the reasons that Keith came, he wanted to try the food because, as we know, Keith travels the country. He tries different menus and things like that from things that he's seen. And we know that Walter he's gone viral. He's the reason this restaurant took off, not necessarily because of the food, but he just has that cultural charisma when it comes to cooking and grilling, right? And we've all by now have seen the video where it fell off the bone.
It wasn't the building, it wasn't the menu, it wasn't the branding, it was the glasses tossed, it was that walk off, it was the rib bone falling clean off the meat, it was the personality, the flavor, the soul that only Walter could bring.
I tried telling y'all about Tendernism.
And none of y'all could tell me you didn't drive out there just to see him. But here's the part that really blows my mind. Destination Smokehouse would not even exist as a barbecue spot if Walter hadn't brought the idea to the owner, Nick.
Now check this out, right? Because I was wondering if I was the only one watching this, right? So me and my girl was watching the video, and she say, it looked like it split down the middle. And I say, hold on. I say, it do look like I say, it do look like spit down the middle. And I say, rewind that thing for me. Let me check that out. Let me see what. And I say, it do look like spit down the middle. Because I had to watch it twice just to be sure. So then, and going back into the video, I said, I think even Keith caught that, but Keith just didn't press it. He didn't press it as much. So I'm like, but at the same time, I'm like, I ain't mad at him though. I'm like, because my thing is, gimmick is everything. Marketing is everything. You know what I'm saying? Because the flavor is most important, but marketing is more important because you got to get the business. So I ain't mad at him. If that's what worked, do your thing. But the meat still looked tender. It still looked juicy. It looked amazing. I mean, in my opinion. Now, at the same time, we can see when Keith got into the video that he was trying the food out. And one of the things that he talked about was the mac and cheese. The mac and cheese looked horrible. And yeah, it did look horrible. I mean, I myself know a little something about mac and cheese, and that mac and cheese wasn't good. And he talked about the yams and how the yams were a little too sweet and the brisket was a little too salty. But even though it didn't really fall off the bone, you could still see it was tender, right? I mean, but at the end of the day, Walter's the face of the business. You know what I mean? And him being the face of the business, the video went viral. He threw the glasses down. He was like, man, this like, oh, man. Oh. like, oh. Walter had a blast with that video, but I'm just saying, we can see, I mean, it was so believable. I mean, it had people like me and other people like, man, where is this at? I got to get a piece of it. And again, if we touching on that, I mean, we could look at the restaurant and we could see the restaurant was pretty packed. We can even see on the outside, it was somewhat wrapped around the corner of the line, I mean, right? And we can even see that it was somewhat multicultural. So it wasn't necessarily just a black thing, but obviously the black community is in an uproar because of the situation. So we saw that Walter needed to take some time off, right? And in the video, if I'm not mistaken, it was 30 days. And Walter came back to work and there was an issue. And then we found out that Walter was no longer part of the company, right? So here's what I think. Here's what I personally think happened, right? I think somebody in Walter's circle made him, ask questions. Like, I think somebody in Walter's circle said, finance is not financing. It's not adding up. The type of money that an owner should be making should be doing a little bit better in this situation. Now, that's just my theory. I don't know that for sure. But, I mean, obviously, they didn't talk numbers. I mean, understandably, they didn't talk numbers. I get it, right? But it came out, again, that Walter was just a grill master. He's an employee, not an owner. I don't know what grill masters, what type of money they make. You know what I mean? So that's not trying to count anybody's pockets. But from what I could see, that business was packed and doing well. And I mean, if you know how pricing for barbecue is these days, it's nothing too cheap, especially when it's a party of two or more. You know what I'm saying? So, I think inadvertently, Keith showing up is what blew the whole thing up, which obviously that's the theme of the video. I think the business would have continued as usual. I think if Keith never showed up, and he never talked about some of the things he talked about in his video in terms of the tip, and he couldn't get access to him and issues with the food and this and that, and he couldn't get to Walter. I think things would have continued as usual. I think the owner would have made sure that Walter was as comfortable as he had been, up to that point. Even at the point where the truth had came out that he was an owner and business was still business as usual. You know what I mean? It's obviously when something blows up and things go viral, questions are going to be aroused. You know what I mean? People are going to wonder. They're going to want to know more about the business. They're going to want to know more about the owners and those involved, especially Walter. Him being the face and all. Because obviously Walter is charismatic, but he doesn't even know he's charismatic. It's not like he's trying. He's just naturally that, which is what drew people to him. You know what I'm saying? Obviously the food looks, the barbecue at least looks amazing. It makes people want to try it. It makes people want to come in, especially people, that love barbecue, or at least, things related to that, those of us that love our smoked food, we'd be willing to travel that far. Keith said he traveled at least 200 miles, and, partly to give him the tip, but partly for his social media, but partly for the food, things that we'll do for some good food. because I do think he was taken advantage of, but unknowingly. I do think that money was being made off this man, and no one had any plans, on really allowing him to know the truth. So in that aspect, I think I feel sorry for him. There was another conversation that said that he was Steven from Django. You know what I'm saying? He was like, he's one of them. Like, he may have known what was going on and he was willing to excuse it because Massa said, this is what we got to do. Now, that's a bit harsh. I can't say that I agree with that fully. I mean, I'm not saying I disagree with it, but I just don't want to call another black man, anything in dealing with a slave mentality. You know what I'm saying? I'd rather stick with the idea that he's just unknowing. And, again, even if it sounds harshly, I'm going to say it, naive, or senile, or I say senile, senile, because Mr. Tendernism, obviously, he's a cook, and people that cook love to cook. It's kind of like people that like to make music, right? With all the business that's involved, you'll hear a lot of them say, I hate the business side of it. I just want to do my craft. And I think cooking is the same way. It's sad though. It's sad that it has come to the point that it's come to. It's at a point now where they're in court. The owner's trying to sue Walter for the name Tendernism, which I think is a waste of time. I think that the owner is truly just wasting money, and it's because it boils down to the trademark, right? Like, for example, this right here, right? This is my brand. It says Garder Payas Valuta. It just means to look like wealth, right? I own that. I own the saying. I own the logo. It's mine's. You know what I mean? And it's mine's based on the date of filing. I trademarked it. And there's this thing that I guess the owner's argument is based on usage, where he's saying that Destination used it first. But in reality, Walter used it first, promoting Destination. So if that's your argument, you're really wasting your time. And then at the same time, I mean, being that we know Walter's the first to use it, his attorney, from my understanding, smartly filed it first.
It actually brought people to the restaurant, and look what we do. We end up stealing from him. His name is nowhere on this information. Now, Ken said he's actually trying to give it to him. However, his business partner, Mr. Learn Everything on YouTube, is keeping everything in-house.
Now, what you got to say about that?
So Kenneth filed November 16th and Diamond Smokehouse filed December 6th. Now, Kenneth Harris filed first, but his filing says intent to use, meaning he wasn't using it yet. Nick filed later, but his says first use in commerce is April 17th, 2024. So legally, Nick is trying to argue I used it first, so even though I filed later, I still own it.
I have an update on Destination Smokehouse stealing Tendernism and filing a trademark without including Unc on it. First, let me start by saying, yes, Destination Smokehouse filed a fraudulent trademark application with the USPTO for Tendernism under the direction of an attorney.
At the end of the day, that's really what it boils down to. It boils down to filing, data filing, because the courts are going to look at who filed it first and who got the permission, who got the right of passage to use it first. Walter. It's in writing. It's a total waste of time. But even Walter, obviously he's got some decent, I'm assuming this is Walter, I'm going to say he got some decent, his attorney, I'm assuming it's his attorney, and he's got some other decent people around him that instructed him on different ways to use it, because Walter was saying, he said, I just found another way to use it. Walter sounds like one of them 1970s players, one of them 70s pimps that also knew how to cook a little bit. And how he just be, when he threw the glasses down. But he seem like one of the pimps where he kind of still in it, but he not, like he retired from it. You know what I'm saying? Like he just don't care about all the nonsense. Like I'm gonna keep pushing it. That's my vibe. That's my energy. And that's what I really like about Walter. I like to see that about him. Like I said, even though I do feel kind of sorry for him, I like that part. So I hope that his business can still function, and I hope that it can be successful. And my thing is, the reason why I'm saying it is because usually when a business takes a hit, or should I say the owner takes a hit, from negative publicity, the whole business takes a hit and it trickles down to the employees. So even though Walter is not a part of it anymore, he's been attached to this. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, I know the black community has stepped up. You know what I'm saying? They stepped up and they're showing him love, that someone donated funds, not even in the form of a loan. They donated to him to start this business. You know, so I hope it can still be successful, and I hope he can still go somewhere with it, you know, because my thing is, you know, some of us black folk, you know, we like to support each other until we get in our feelings, until things are, and we rub the wrong way. Because my thing is, I give you 2 chances, you know, and if you can't get it right the first time, my thing is like, okay, you can have an off night. Sometimes it depends on who was staffed that night. I give you that. But if I come the second time and I ain't feeling it, you will probably never see me again. That's just how I am. I mean, because my thing is, I expect higher from my people. You know what I'm saying? But again, that's another story. But like I said, I just hope that obviously, you know, he can bounce back from this. I hope he can be successful. You know, I hope he can still create what he's created with, you know, with Destination. You know, I'm curious. I'm curious to know that whether or not the food is going to be different. Because like I said, the owner claims that he took these classes and these YouTube classes, which is, you know, which is another thing. Because obviously I get it. You can learn a lot from YouTube. But can you really learn to cook from YouTube, though? Because I mean, my thing is, that's got to be your spirit. That's got to be something that's just a part of you. You know what I'm saying? Where you can't just, there's certain things you can't just watch a video and learn. You know what I'm saying? When he claimed he did that. Walter even went as far to say, well, I tried to teach him a few things at first. He ain't listening at first, but I tried to teach him. But I would want to believe that this owner still picked some of that stuff up, or at least the people around him to keep running this business. You know what I'm saying? You know, but I'm curious to know. I'm curious to know if the flavor is still there, because flavor is everything. With all the marketing and everything, as I was saying earlier, flavor is everything, you know, and obviously he has the smokers. The smokers are $100,000 equipment. And again, if we're talking about Walter's position right now, I mean, I personally don't believe he was making the money he made. I told you guys my stance on what I think happened. He probably don't have those $100,000 smokers. You know, he even went as far to say that they started with those cheap, for example, Walmart grills, and it became something else. I mean, Walter could probably do that again, you know, but obviously the business at Destination had family money involved, and it took it to a new level when it blew up and became something else for Walter. But you never know. I mean, you never know what a business can become. You know, it says that, restaurants, 95% of restaurants fail within the first year. You know, I would like to say that Walter has a head start, you know, because he's already famous. He's internet famous or social media famous, which I think can help him. But I'm curious of what his food will be like versus Destination, because obviously they're at odds now, and, you know, one's going to combat the other, even though Walter is the more positive, you know, force in the situation. But let's see what happened. Tell me if you guys have visited the Destination before Walter and after Walter left, and has the food changed? Have you guys visited the new Destination? I'd like to hear about that too. You know, let's see what it is. You know, I might even be willing to check it out later on down the line. I don't know. You know, it's something I have to see. You know, but at least I'll take you guys' words for it, obviously, because it'll be a start. You know, before I choose or choose not to do so. But anyway, this is your boy Cass with Taboo Topics. Appreciate y'all for spending time with me, and leave me some comments in the section.
It's